Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Fall in Love with Series Nonfiction. I'm Julia Smith, Senior Editor, Books for Youth at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Last but not least, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Dan Leone, publisher of Reference Point Press, Anna Erickson, Vice President, Sales at the Creative Company, and Kathleen McBroom, librarian at the Baldwin Public Library in Birmingham, Michigan, and School Library Media Practicum Coordinator for the School of Information Sciences at Wayne State University. First, we'll hear from Dan Leone. Dan is the publisher of Reference Point Press. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Julia. I am going to share my screen here real quick. All righty. Believe we got it there. Yes. Okay. Let's get the slideshow going. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Yes. Thank you again, Julia. This is Dan Leone. I'm the publisher of Reference Point Press. I appreciate you all taking the time today to learn more about our fall 2022 series and titles. Reference Point has been publishing quality nonfiction for middle and high school students for over 15 years now. To better support below-level and reluctant teen readers, we recently created our new imprint, Brightpoint Press. The goal of Brightpoint is to provide quality high-low nonfiction that is relevant to teens. I'm really excited to present Reference Point and Brightpoint's new fall 2022 titles to you. We always strive to create and publish relevant and timely topics to meet your students' and patrons' needs. This season, we are covering some high-interest topics like sharks and space exploration, as well as offering new series in our core content areas like current issues and career education. I'll begin today with new series from our new Reluctant Reader imprint, Brightpoint Press. At 64 to 80 pages, these books are designed for reluctant teen readers and have very clean, simple, and unintimidating designs with lots of images and infographics. While the reading level ranges from 3rd to 4th grade, these titles are definitely designed with teens in mind and include important features such as at-a-glance topic summary openers, sidebars, glossaries, source notes, and bibliographies. The first series we'll look at is Dealing with Addiction. This discusses several forms of addiction, from dependency on drugs and alcohol to the overuse of things such as social media and smartphones. The series explores the science behind addiction, how it affects people's lives, and how treatment can help. Each book includes a graphic that presents key information visually. Also includes source notes and resources to aid in further research. Here's a spread from social media addiction. As you can see, Brightpoint designs are very clean and inviting for reluctant readers, but still include important content features such as infographics, which visually help students understand statistics as well as support concepts discussed in the text. The next series is Teen Guide to Social and Emotional Skills. This series informs teen readers about the benefits of using social and emotional skills at school, at home, with friends, and in the community as well. The books explore several of these skills using engaging narratives and vivid examples to show how practicing them can help teens lead healthy and happy lives. Here's a spread from Developing Self-Awareness. Again, the design is very clean and inviting for reluctant readers, but still includes important content features like source notes, resources to aid in further research, and a glossary. Next, we have a series called Understanding Disorders. The series teaches readers about mental health disorders and their symptoms. Books in this series examine the history of these disorders and how they affect everyday life. Each book includes infographics, source notes, resources to aid in further research, and a glossary. Here's a spread from What Are Learning Disorders? With a clear and clean layout, this title invites readers to understand the symptoms of and therapies for people with learning disorders to help them establish the skills they need to succeed in life. This next series will be quite unique in the marketplace. It's called Exploring Jobs in the Gig Economy. The series introduces readers to diverse job prospects in the expanding gig economy. The books examine gig work in different industries, the rise of gig work, the pros and cons of gig work compared to traditional employment, and the future of this new style of work. The industries covered include gaming, high tech, delivery and transportation, social media, and the creative arts. Young adults today are more open to and interested in the flexibility and options that gig work can offer than the older generations of more traditional office and factory workers. This series is sure to be popular and in demand. Here's a spread from Gig Jobs in Transportation and Delivery. Again, Brightpoint titles are designed with teens in mind, but offer accessible reading levels for more reluctant and struggling teen readers. We have another career guidance series up next. This is a continuing series called Skilled and Vocational Trades. This popular series explores careers that do not require traditional four-year college degrees, such as web developers, dental hygienists, construction equipment operators, and more. The books describe the jobs associated with each trade and provide information on training and education, life on the job, and the career outlook. Here's a spread from Become an IT Support Tech. Each book in the series includes an at-a-glance summary, infographics, sidebars, glossaries, source notes, and a list of resources for further research. Next, we have a new series called Exploring Social Injustice. This timely new series introduces readers to different types of injustice present in today's society. The books examine the history of each kind of injustice, examples of the injustice today, key moments in fighting the injustice, and what can be done to end it in the future. Each book includes a graphic that presents key information visually, source notes, a glossary, and resources to aid in further research. Here's a spread from Climate and Environmental Injustice. Climate change and pollution harm some groups more than others. This is called Climate and Environmental Injustice. This title covers the history of climate and environmental injustice, key moments in fighting it, and what can be done to end it in the future. Here we have a new series called All About Sharks. This is the classic high interest topic that all readers love, and it explores the fascinating world of sharks. The books examine the biology of sharks, weird and prehistoric sharks, endangered shark species, and of course, shark attacks. Each book includes illustrations, source notes, a glossary, and resources to aid in further research. Here we have a spread from the Shark Biology title. Sharks are known as some of the fiercest creatures in the ocean. They have evolved over millions of years into apex predators, as well as some of the most efficient and resilient creatures on Earth. This title examines the biology of sharks, including how sharks swim, reproduce, and hunt. This book covers some fascinating shark features that truly make them a wonder of the sea. Next, we have a STEM series called Our Solar System. This series takes readers on a tour of the planets, moons, and other objects found in Earth's neighborhood in space. The series explains where these bodies are, what they look like, and how scientists study and explore them. Here we have a spread from the Sun title. Again, notice the simple, unintimidating layout with lots of space, as well as numerous large and colorful illustrations and images. These titles will be inviting to any reluctant teen reader. And we have another STEM series here called Space Exploration. This high interest series will pique curiosity as it informs readers about cutting edge developments in space exploration and travel. The books look ahead to the future of life in space, covering the rockets, robots, and technology needed to explore the solar system and beyond. Each book includes numerous color images and illustrations, source notes, a glossary, and resources to aid in further research. Here's a spread from rockets and space travel. With some of the newer private companies such as SpaceX and Blue Origin regularly in the news launching their latest generation of rockets, as well as celebrity passengers, this title covers how the advanced rockets of tomorrow will be even more powerful and efficient than ever before. So that's it for our new high-low nonfiction series from Brightpoint. Now we'll move into new series and titles from Reference Point for fall 2022. Reference Point publishes high quality and relevant YA nonfiction at Lexile levels ranging from 1,000 to 1,400, targeting at-level high school students. Reference Point titles include many features to aid students with research and assignments, including numerous and fully cited primary and secondary source quotes, sidebars, color images and illustrations, visual timelines, annotated lists to aid in further research, and detailed indices. The first Reference Point series I will cover is very timely and relevant. It's called Challenges to Democracy. Over the past few years, with increasing civil unrest, American democracy has experienced unprecedented challenges. This series examines function and dysfunction in the pillars of our democracy. Topics include the political party system, voting, the Supreme Court, media literacy, and the relationships between the president and Congress. Fully documented quotes, relevant facts, and historic context add depth and perspective to this exciting series. This spread is from the title Voting, Rights and Suppression. After seeing all the high-low Brightpoint series up to this point, you'll notice the huge difference in page design. Reference Point titles are for at or above level teen readers with 1,100 plus Lexile ranges. However, while the reading level is higher, the Reference Point titles still include many interesting color images and illustrations, as can be seen here. Next, we have our popular continuing series called Thinking Critically. This perennial series introduces students to the complex issues that dominate public debate and challenges them to become discerning readers, to think independently, and to engage and develop their skills as critical thinkers. Chapters are organized in a pro-con format in which a single author synthesizes the predominant arguments for and against an issue into clear, accessible discussion supported by details and evidence, including relevant facts, direct quotes, current examples, and infographics. Here's a spread from Thinking Critically, the COVID-19 pandemic. Through a narrative-driven pro-con format supported by relevant facts, quotes, and anecdotes, this book examines issues related to the pandemic. Topics include, do pandemic mandates violate individual rights? Have lockdowns been worth the economic and social harm? Has vaccine distribution failed? This series is a great resource for students doing persuasive essays or speech and debate projects. Next, we have an important new health series called Mental Health Crisis. Propelled by the pandemic, and health medical experts have sounded the alarm about a troubling rise in anxiety and depression, eating disorders, drug overdoses, and teen suicide. This series examines why mental health has been deteriorating, how teens in particular have been affected, and ways to get help. In addition to real-world accounts, commentary, and facts from knowledgeable sources add depth to this series as well. Here's a spread from Anxiety and Depression on the Rise. Rates of anxiety and depression, which have been increasing for years, have recently surged. With its succinct text and numerous color images and infographics, this book examines the factors that have contributed to this rise, how teens in particular have been affected, and ways to get help. Next, we have a new collective biography series called Black Americans of Distinction. Black Americans have made important contributions in all areas of American life. This series profiles the lives and achievements of important Black Americans in science, business, politics, sports, and the arts. Every book focuses on 5 individuals, both historic and contemporary, all of whom are renowned in their fields of expertise. Primary and secondary source quotes add depth and enliven the narrative. Here's a spread from important Black Americans in science and invention. African Americans have made significant contributions to science and discovery in the past 2 centuries, including the areas of astronomy, chemistry, biology, and others. Profiled in this book are 5 outstanding examples, including agriculturalist George Washington Carver, chemist Percy Julian, astronaut Mae Jemison, who's featured on the cover here, and then astrophysicist Neil Tyson, and marine biologist Diana Elizabeth Johnson. This next series is perfect for teens considering careers in the military. Young people can gain valuable skills, experience, and discipline in the military. They can also train for a wide array of careers, many of which will enable a seamless transition to civilian life. Each volume profiles 6 specific jobs in various career fields, including medicine, skilled trades, and intelligence and cybersecurity. What the jobs entail require education and training, and employment prospects in the civilian world are discussed along with insights from service personnel. Each title also includes a 2-page Q&A interview with a current military worker that gives real world perspective to readers. Here's a spread from skilled trades in the military. Skilled trades offer many career opportunities for military personnel. This book explores 6 jobs in the skilled trades. What the jobs entail, required education and training, and employment prospects in the civilian world are discussed along with insights from service personnel. This will be a real useful series for schools looking for more career guidance resources. The last series we have today is a real high interest subject. It's called Mythology Around the World. This high interest set explores world cultures throughout ancient history and looks at how their mythologies demonstrate universal human themes. Titles in this series explore stories in creation, death, love, nature, and war that have been told and retold in cultures spanning the globe. Here's a spread from Gods of Death in World Mythology. Prominent in the mythologies of people around the world and over the centuries are gods that oversee death, burial, the underworld, the survival of the human soul, and sometimes all of these. This book explores those deities and their timeless stories in the lore of the ancient Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, Chinese, Norse, and West Africans. Full color images, interesting sidebars, along with numerous primary and secondary source quotes enhance the clearly written text for all titles in this high interest series. That's it for a new series. And I know this is a series nonfiction webinar, but we wanted to go over something that Reference Point's been doing for a while now, our new single title nonfiction list. The single title approach has grown for us considerably over the past few years, and I'm happy to say that we currently have over 65 titles in print and are publishing over 20 new titles this fall. This approach gives us more freedom to publish topics that are relevant and appealing without having to commit to an entire series of titles that may not be of much interest to themselves. This season, we cover some important controversial issues, as well as some high interest topics, including health, biography, and career planning. All of these single titles include the features that make Reference Point books useful, including visual timelines, colorful illustrations and images, sidebars, margin quotes, primary and secondary source quotes, org lists, and all the other features that make our books useful. While we do not have time to cover all the titles, I wanted to show you the titles in category groupings and highlight a few. Here's our biography and career group. For this group, I want to highlight the Teen Guide to College and Career Planning at the lower bottom right. College and career planning can be overwhelming and stressful, but it can also be an exciting opportunity for teens to think about what they want and don't want in their future. The key to not feeling overwhelmed is preparation and research. This book shows teens the many ways to embark on this process, whether they see themselves going directly into the work world from high school, or devoting 4 years to a college education, or completing a 2-year program that will jumpstart their professional career. This title is a great stepping stone for teenage students to get a general overview of the options they have as they plan their future. The next group we have includes titles on science and health. This group has many strong topics, but I would like to highlight what I feel is a really unique but important title called Bias Science. The cover is the one on the upper left side. Science is supposed to be impartial, ethical, and concerned only with the truth, but in many cases, science is none of those things. From the infamous Tuskegee experiments to deliberate falsification of scientific results for political purposes, from leaving women out of medical studies to developing devices that are much more effective on white people than on Black people, science is as prone to bias as any other field. This book looks at examples of bias science and its impact on society. The final group we have includes current issue topics. Again, all these are popular and important topics that are often discussed and debated, but I would like to highlight the power of social media. I really like the cover for this title. You can see it at the bottom middle row. I think social media has had more influence on society than perhaps any other technology invention from the past 50 plus years. Social media has turned average teens into celebrities, shaken financial markets, and drives the masses into the streets in protest. It has been blamed for increasing addictive behavior, spreading lies, and lowering the self-esteem of users. This book brings together academic research, personal stories, and current events to explore the power of social media in today's world. This is a very compelling and relevant title. And that's what's new for Fall 22 from Reference Point. Thank you for taking the time to review our new titles. And please remember, Reference Point now with its Brightpoint imprint includes quality and relevant teen nonfiction for both at and above level, as well as reluctant or below level teen readers. Thank you, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Dan. We'll now hear from Anna Erickson. Anna has worked in the children's book publishing business for over 25 years and is stubbornly convinced that all children deserve access to high quality reading material. She's based in Oakland, California. Thanks for being here, Anna.
Thank you, Julia. It's great to be here with the team of Booklist, as well as Dan and Kathleen. Well, the Creative Company is a Minnesota-based company that has been around since 1932. And today it is our pleasure not only to represent our own books, but also those for independent publishers Amicus and Black Rabbit Books. So we'll run through the Fall 22 series nonfiction highlights for all of these lists, beginning with Amicus. And I will say at the outset that the series nonfiction titles we're looking at here today are available in not only library-bound hardcover, but also paperback and ebook. And an increasingly high proportion of these titles are available in English and Spanish. All right, we'll begin with the Amicus Spot division. Amicus, as many of you know, means friend in Latin, and that shines through everything that the Amicus program does, beginning with Spot, which are their books for the youngest readers. All of the Spot titles carry an ATOS of 1.0 or under, which is, as you know, is hard to do a really comprehensive flowing text at that low level, but they work really hard at it, and they've created beautiful books. Each title in the Spot program uses this search and find framework. So at the beginning of every book, you are invited to spot 4 keywords as you progress through the text, along with 4 details of the larger photographs within. And this season, Spot is bringing us big birds in all of their glory. This is where those crisp, clear images really come into their own, as can be demonstrated by the amazing eyelash of this ostrich, designed to keep out sand, as we learn in the text. These books are friendly, they're welcoming, just as the Amicus mission is, and they are a great way to introduce emergent readers into series nonfiction text. Next up for Amicus is their Curious About imprint. And Curious About is a new imprint for Amicus that was launched just this year in spring 22. And it is, as the publisher describes, expository series nonfiction, expository learning. Basically, it's questions and answers from a kid's eye perspective. And not just a string of questions, but questions that form a narrative arc and a meaningful dive into high interest topics. These are written at the second grade level with an ATOS of 2 to 2.5, and they specialize in exciting topics that are designed to get those second graders into books. That's certainly true for cool rides. The new set, which includes dragsters, hot rods, Indy cars, and beyond. I love the look of these books. I think they're pushing the boat forward in terms of the design of series nonfiction. And, sometimes design, when it works really well, we don't always notice it, but you'll see that they're using not only a lot of generous white space, but these really saturated, intense, almost jewel-like covered colors in the background. And they really make these spreads pop. And I think that's just another element that not only brings you to a book, but helps keep you engaged in a whole series. This set is available in Spanish as well as English. Also in Curious About is Wild Animals, where we dive into 6 new animals. And again, you can see the saturated tones there in the background, the use of color, and how that highlights the photos as well as the infographics and the text. The photography, once again, is crisp, clear, sharp, and inviting. All right. One of the highlights of the Amicus program in recent years has been the Amicus Illustrated list. And this is where Amicus has used illustration to really dive deep into narrative nonfiction. And it's given them a lot of flexibility to explore interesting topics geared at that 2nd to 3rd grade level with an ATOS to match. This has certainly been true in the last year with My Life With. This is a wonderful program, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, I highly recommend it. In My Life With, author Mari Shu interviews real kids, and each of these books is based on a real kid who lives with the topic in question. Those interviews with the kids bring these books a real feel of authenticity, I think, and genuine voice. They're not written by the kids, but their experiences are informing the text. And a couple of things really shine through. One is that no one person's experience with ADHD or autism or any of these conditions represents the entire experience of that condition. But they are very specific, and each of these kids makes it crystal clear that this is one part of their life. It is not the defining part of their life. So it brings a sense of accessibility to a range of readers, even those who are less familiar with these things. My Life With is also available in Spanish, and you'll see the 4 new books on the left there, as well as the 6 prior titles in the series on the right. Last for Amicus is Sequence, and this is a wonderful imprint that uses progressive timelines to show how big things happen one piece at a time. The Sequence program has covered a range of topics, including biography, engineering, even government, how bills are passed through Congress and whatnot. But this season, the focus is a celebration of national landmarks. These are all big things, and none of them happened overnight. So the Sequence books step us through the process, which is not always a straight line, of how each of these came to be. And you can see at the bottom of the sample spread how the timeline builds as the title progresses. All right, moving over now to Black Rabbit Books. Black Rabbit Books is the publisher who has made it their mission in recent years to zero in on reluctant readers and readers at risk from the pre-K to grade 3 range in particular. This begins with their Bolt Junior imprint, which goes after the youngest kids who are at risk, pre-K to second grade. And as with all of the Black Rabbit books, they have a very targeted ATOS range for each imprint, but a very wide interest range, similar to what Dan is doing with Brightpoint. This is offering a range of accessibility with an achievable reading level, but a higher interest level for each of these imprints. So Bolt Junior zeroes in on topics appropriate for the younger kids. They use a friendly, almost square trim. And as you'll see in A Little Bit Spooky, which is exactly that, a little bit, not too, but a little bit spooky, we get into delightfully paranormal topics, such as UFOs and what have we got here? The vampires in this spread. This set is available in Spanish as well as English. Next is Awesome Animal Lives. And I love how every school library publisher out there who deals with topics such as single subject animal titles brings their unique take, their unique feel to these covers, to the books that they produce within the series. And that's certainly true for Black Rabbit. The covers, the presentation for single subject animal titles are always punchy, a little bit humorous. They use kind of in-your-face images on the covers that just pull you right in. I think of them a little bit as the animal books with a bit of attitude in a good way. So Awesome Animal Lives includes some of the most popular animals out there. This is a continuing program. You'll see the clear templated text. So once you pick up and succeed with the elephant title, all of these books will fall into line. The look of them, the presentation doesn't send you chasing your tail. It gives you a consistent template that you can work with and experience that success book after book. Last but not least for Bolt Junior is the perennial top popular emergency vehicles, such as ambulances, fire trucks, but also check out the ship lifeboats down at the bottom there. We don't see that one in every emergency set. These two use that really clear design, the pull you in photos and the high interest topics to set up a good positive reading experience. And I love something that Black Rabbit does again throughout both Bolt Junior and the next level up, the Bolt imprint, which is to set up really great compare and contrast pages such as this, where they use the full spread to look at thoughtful, interesting, and sometimes just fun comparisons. And in this case, we've got the flatbed versus the full-size pickup. You know, how do those two compare? This set too is available in Spanish. All right, the third imprint that Black Rabbit publishes into is Hijinks, and Hijinks is exactly that. It's up to a little bit of mischief, and Hijinks uses illustration to highlight not only humor and a sense of fun, but also how to, and frankly, a generous dollop of gross. The Hijinks imprint uses an ATOS right around 3.0, a little above or below. And again, that wide interest range for grades 2 all the way to 6 in a 24-page format. So up this season for Hijinks is Awesome Disgusting Careers. We love to bring the gross, and we're going to do it this time with a look forward into a range of jobs that involve some aspect or factor that can be thought of as a little bit gross, but these are important jobs that have to be done, and they may actually have appeal to the younger readers as they try to imagine a grown-up future for themselves. As ever, there's nothing so delightful as poop, so we get to explore all the wonders of bat poop in this particular title. This set is available in Spanish also. And then last for Black Rabbit is the guides for caring for your pet dinosaur. So these take a whimsical look at what it might be like if you could have a dinosaur as a pet. Spoiler alert, they're going to need a lot of exercise and a generous diet to keep things harmonious in the home. All right, last but not least, we'll move now to the creative company itself and our creative education list. All of these titles are, as noted previously, available in paperback as well as ebook. First up is the wondrous, amazing animal series. This has been a hallmark series for Creative for almost a dozen years now. These are single subject animal books for the second grade level. And they really, I think, are some of the sharpest, most gorgeous covers out there. Because this series was nearly a dozen years old, we have gone back to the beginning and have been updating and reissuing all of the books in the program. So this is true for the large, generous set we have for you this fall. All of these updates include fully up-to-date back matter. Any information within the text, such as whether an animal has moved on or off of an endangered list, has been brought up to date. Covers are brand new ISBNs, replacing the old ones, so new copyright date. But a few things have remained consistent, and one of those is the signature look of these books, which again includes a generous amount of white space. It's a very inviting reading experience. A lot of extra information tucked into the captions, the sidebars, the in-text definitions, as we see there. And of course, if you know Amazing Animals, you know that every book has an animal story, which is basically an origin tale. It's a signature feature for Creative. No matter what subject they're publishing, they love to weave in curriculum items from other subjects. So if it's a science book, whenever possible, it'll pull in a bit of social studies, fine arts, even pop culture. And that's true here. These books are available in English as well as Spanish. Okay, on the sports front, we have the Super Bowl champions for you. So these are 20 titles that profile every NFL team that has won a Super Bowl championship, gives you the full history of the team and all of those Super Bowl wins. These are written at about the second to third grade level. And these are all new, fully up to date, available in English and Spanish. And last but not least, for our series nonfiction is the X Books Ice Age Creatures. X Book is Creative's take on the concept of extreme. So these are the most extreme Ice Age creatures that all roamed North America, which I find slightly mind-blowing and delightful. They use a countdown feature to explore the most sensational fossil finds for each of these animals. And last but not least, just a shout out also to the ongoing historical nonfiction program within the Creative Company, Creative Editions imprint of picture books. Take a look this season at Sashiko, which is a story of how the art of Japanese stitching, quilted stitching, embroidery formed as a art of necessity, as so many crafts and arts did come from. This was a way to pull together multiple layers of fabric to create a warmer garment, but was done in a beautiful manner. I also finally shout out for A Song for the Cosmos, which is the story of the blues musician Blind Willie Johnson. It profiles his life and shows how his songs, many years after his death, were chosen to be included on the golden record that went out and is still traveling into space on the Voyager spacecrafts. That's it for Creative. Thank you so much, Julia, and we'll pass the conversation on to Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Anna. And now we will hear a special presentation from Kathleen McBroom. Kathleen has worked in academic, public, and school libraries, has taught library programs at both the University of Michigan and Wayne State Universities, and has been reviewing books for over 40 years. She currently works at Baldwin Public Library in Birmingham, Michigan, and at Wayne State University's School of Information Sciences. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kathleen.
Thank you, Julia. I'm delighted to be here. Hello, everyone. Today, when I was putting together my presentation, I was trying to think of a hook, some way to kind of craft all these titles so they fit together. And what I came up with is books that we can recommend to teachers, whether we're in school libraries or public libraries, because we, both areas, you deal with teachers coming in for inspiration all the time. And I thought about some series and books that might help teachers elevate their assignments a little bit. Every now and then a kid will have an assignment and they come in and they say, I want a book on something. You know, I have to do I have to do a project on Michigan. I have to do a project on photosynthesis. Well, we are always urging, you know, teachers to work with us to kind of move from like these one source reports into inquiry, and to kind of move them along to get more, you know, in STEM and STEAM, and as Anna was just talking about, cross-curricular titles. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And Anna, some of this is going to be a little familiar to you, I think. Since we're here today with the Creative Company and with Reference Points Press, I thought I would review maybe some of your previous titles and use those as examples. So Grace, could you give me the first slide, please? Thank you. So Anna, this should be rather familiar to you. This book is part of your Living Wild series. Perhaps that was one of the ones you were alluding to that have been updated. But this Living Wild series, this particular book by Militia Gish on crabs came out in 2015. It covers everything you would hope that a book would cover. This is pretty much for middle readers, maybe grades 3 through 5. And in addition to the lifestyle and the environment and how humans are impacting the crabs and so on and so forth, every one of these books does include a whole section on how these animals fit into our culture. You know, how have they shown up in myths or literature and movies, TV shows? Think about it. If teachers knew that this kind of cultural information, this cross-curricular information was readily available in these books, how might they update assignments? You know, I mean, bringing in creativity, bringing in writing, bringing in culturals, poetry, art projects, just something that highlight this aspect of a series like this to teachers, to give them the ability to come up with a little bit more interesting assignments that involve kids more and enhance kids' learning. Grace, if we could have the next slide, please. Now this next book I'm sneaking in, it's not part of a series, but it also comes from the Creative Company. And this is Harlem Hellfighters, one of my all-time favorite books, written by A. Patrick Lewis and illustrated magnificently by Gary Kelly. But I brought this one in because this talks about what I was just speaking to as far as elevating assignments. Briefly, Harlem Hellfighters tells the story of about 2,000 African-American men who were recruited to become soldiers during World War I. And they were promised all sorts of things when they were recruited, but the reality, they went down south to be trained, rigorous training in the Jim Crow South. You can imagine what that was like. When they finally got over to Europe, they were given horrible brunt jobs because both the American and British soldiers refused to fight with them. Finally, when they were embedded along with the French troops gave them the nickname the Harlem Hellfighters because of their courage. And all of this information is communicated in free verse, poetry. So there's tons of facts, but tons of other kind of emotive things that are brought in. Now, if this isn't enough in this one book, kind of a twist on, World War I history, as far as seeing the story of underrepresented people and telling their stories. Another aspect of the Harlem Hellfighters is that a lot of the guys who were recruited were professional musicians. They were recruited by a band leader whose name was English. And James Europe, I'm sorry, not English, James Europe. And James Europe brought these professional musicians. Some have been classically trained, a lot of them have been playing. And he put together a band, and these guys brought over the whole music of the Harlem Renaissance to Europe. They brought the blues, they brought jazz. And so all of this is in this beautifully illustrated book. You can see here, this is one of the front pages over on the right, where you see scenes of combat from World War I, but you see Black faces. You see a close-up of the fear. And down at the bottom, that center entrance, that center image, which shows, Black death. Grace, if we could go to the next slide, please. I love the recruiting poster that's on the left that brings in so much. You know, you have that young African-American man, he's got his bebop hat on, he's got his, trombone, and the image on the right as well. But again, with Black faces, just representing kind of marginalized communities, that they were going through the same things, only we see again a representation of African-American. And this great book, I mean, it could be used, you could sell this to teachers just to let them know that these wonderful types of history books exist. World War II, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, February for Black History Month. Think about the US history applications, of course, everything from the slave trade to restoration, Jim Crow. Think of the social, emotional, education aspects you could bring in here. Courage, tenacity, pride, research units where students are encouraged to dig in and find behind the scenes stories of traditional history books, marginalized communities and their contributions, and then music, art, the Harlem Renaissance, poetry, because it is free verse, language, rap. I mean, you can just go on and on and on. So these kind of books, introduce them to teachers and help them come up with better assignments. Grace, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you so much. Okay, so here's a publication from Reference Point Press, and it makes it includes all the wonderful elements that Dan was talking about as far as the insets and the very accessible information. But I include this because those of you who still force yourself to listen to the news probably know that back on Monday, today's Thursday, back on Monday, this big story broke in the national news about an outside panel that had gone in and looked at professional women's soccer and had basically come up with a very damning report on how the entire women's soccer organization, from the smallest kids in, the little ones who take, the lessons in the leagues, all the way up to professional levels, is just full of rampant discrimination and toxicity. And this book, Women in Sports, it's part of the Women and Society series, comes to us from Reference Point Press. This was published back in 2019. And back then, the author, A.W. Bucky, was talking about all the things that this big report about women's soccer deals with now. Talking about the, inequality in the media coverage of women, just the lack of scholarship opportunities, sponsorship opportunities, prize winnings, talks about the inequality in media coverage, including the dearth of women in sports journalism. Now we're getting better, but we still have a long ways to go. So this book existed 2019. If more people knew about this book, if teachers, and this is a 9 through 12 book, so think about the possibilities here. It could be for English language arts reports. It could be for debate classes. Could certainly be used in any kind of social studies class on women in the 20th century, 21st century. It's just, these books exist and we know about them. And I think kids might know about them because they are our greatest customers. And you know how it is, you get the right book to the right child at the right time, and you can just kind of watch their head explode when they find out there is a book on exactly what they're interested in. But we have to do the same thing for teachers. And I think we have to help teachers by showing these kinds of books to them and really promoting them. And Grace, now I'm going to confess, I'm going to go a little bit rogue right now. And instead of talking about series books, I'm going to talk about some of my related titles that have just been published this fall by various publishers that will allow librarians, again, whether you're school or public library, to kind of put books together that have their own themes, their own thematic premise, which is a way of selling new ways of looking at books and topics to teachers. All right. And the one on the left, all right, this comes to us from Candlewick, and it's called Concrete, written by Larissa Toole and wonderful illustrations by Steve Light. And it takes a rather mundane topic, concrete, and it turns it into something mysterious and ancient and unlimited, okay? And think about it, kids are a lot closer to concrete than we are, okay? I think as adults, we kind of take concrete for granted. But kids, they're down on their hands and knees, they're poking animals on concrete, they're drawing all over concrete with their chalk, they're running their, trucks and cars all over the concrete. And this, talks about how concrete goes back about 11,000 years, talks about how the Romans improved it, but after the fall of the Roman Empire, the recipe for concrete was actually lost for centuries. And it wasn't until the 19th century that concrete really came back in vogue because they needed something they could use underwater for like bridges and tunnels that would stand up. And I'm just thinking about those curriculum units that, most kids get into. They kind of touch on it in kindergarten, but really first and second grade, when they talk about their neighborhoods and they talk about cities and they talk about, all these kinds of structures and utilities, bridges, dams, instead of kind of going the traditional route where we usually have kids draw maps of their own neighborhood and, quite honestly, maps, same thing like timelines, these might be exercises that the kids go through, but most of them are a little bit too abstract for the kids to really understand. And instead, use a book like Concrete to encourage kids to look around, to look at the sidewalks, to, what's the difference between cement and concrete, and so on and so forth. But introduce these books to teachers and kind of, suggest these. And then the concrete book really is for younger readers. I would say kindergarten through grade 3. It's got good back matter with notes and everything. And then if you need a little bit more sophisticated books, I like this new one over on the right, Why Humans Build Up and the Rise of Towers, Temples, and Skyscrapers. Well, this is a topic that has been done before, the biggest buildings, the tallest buildings, so on and so forth. But in this one, it's different because the author, Gregor Craigie, really gets into, well, why? Why do people grow up? And he throws out ideas ranging from security and spirituality to ingenuity, utility, and then, of course, rivalry, and finally, luxury. And it's an interesting text, wonderfully complemented by the wonderful illustrations of Kathleen McBroom. And she takes these buildings, and instead of maybe doing like a line graph where you line the buildings up next to each other, you can compare and contrast, Fu actually takes the buildings and recreates new kinds of cityscapes so that you've got, just like we have the cover here, where we have the pyramids nestled next to a medieval fort down there in the bottom left-hand corner. And then, through very modern buildings, she builds new cityscapes. And again, I'm thinking curriculum, all right? We're thinking about maybe 4th, 5th grade when they start talking about cities and how civilizations developed. That comes in 5th grade usually. Units on the growth of civilizations. There's just so much in both of these books. And they talk about efficiency. They talk about sustainability. They've got, applications for architecture, civil engineering, cities. How about housing? Where do we live? How do we live? The environment and preservation and so on. And another thing about both of these books, and I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but they both have little people in them, kind of like ongoing cartoon Greek choruses that make comments like, this will never stand up, this will never work, so on, so forth. And they're just a couple of great books that go together. And speaking of great books that go together, Grace, if we could have my next slide, please. Very briefly, the book on the left, Listen to the Language of the Trees. Teachers always need to be up to date. There's nothing like being caught flat-footed because a child comes in and makes a claim and you don't know anything about it. Well, the book on the left, Listen to the Language of the Trees. This talks about new research, really, that has only come out in about the last 3 years that tell us that trees communicate with each other underground through a very sophisticated network of roots and also kind of fungi systems. And the author, Tara Kelly, this is from Sourcebooks Dawn, by the way, does a great job of using the story of, we can see right here on the cover, a tiny little new evergreen tree is born. Now, when I was taught that trees were competitive, and in forests, it was like survival of the fittest, and that's why they fought their way up for sunshine and things. Dead wrong, of course, because as the story progresses, this new little tree comes up, and the other trees, including the huge balsam fir that you can see behind it, actually send nutrients to the young tree through their roots to sustain it. Well, then the giant tree gets struck by lightning and loses a major limb, and because of that, it becomes infested with beetles. And the story talks about how the big tree that is in distress, first it sends out a distress message through the roots so that other trees actually send healing nutrients. And then it sends out a warning about these invasion of the beetles. Really interesting things. And the illustrations by Marie Hermanson do a great job. You can imagine underground, they've got all of these amazing tunnels and things going on. So the bulk of the illustrations kind of concentrate on the language of the trees. There's tremendous back matter. There's all sorts of facts to help teachers kind of get up to speed if they're not, really aware of that. And of course, obviously, this goes along with environment and trees and biology and how systems communicate with each other and how entire ecosystems fit together. And just to take a second to build with this, the Arbonaut by Meg Lohman. This is an adult title, but it's probably accessible for, certainly any child in grade 8 and up. And it talks about the Arbonaut, and that's Meg Lohman. It's a first-person memoir, but she is considered the one who discovered the 8th continent, which are the tree canopies up above us, which are totally, totally different than the bottom layers of trees. So again, these kinds of books that go together, that bring just a sense of literacy. It's a way to enhance kids' literacy, and it's a way to enhance adult literacies. So, pair these books your own. And then one final book I'd like to bring to your attention today. Grace, if I can have the last slide, please. Thank you so much, Grace. Being You, the body image book for boys. Okay. And this is a great book just because it's a body image book and it's for boys. We know there's been tremendous publications out, a tremendous amount of titles out there on images for girls. There are a whole series on girls, on how to be strong, how to assert yourself, so on and so forth. And this one I'd like to recommend simply because it's written by 3 people. Charlotte Markey is a dietitian. She has a blog on eating safe and habits and body image. Daniel Hart is a psychological researcher who works primarily with young men, but that age group. And then Douglas N. Zacher is a PhD candidate, and he says that his job is to keep the other 2 on track and invested and real. And so the book is very, very approachable, and I'm just thinking this would be a wonderful book for librarians to introduce to teachers, counselors, religious leaders, scout leaders, and coaches. Think about if we could get these kind of books into the hands of coaches who work with kids all the time. So that's the end of my presentation today. I hope I've given some of you some ideas on books and series that you can introduce to teachers to get them to maybe start thinking about zipping up their assignments a little bit so that they can make use of all these wonderful series that both Dan and Anna shared with us today. So I'll conclude, and thank you all very much for listening to me today.
That was so wonderful, Kathleen. Thank you. And a huge thank you to all of today's wonderful panelists. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Now you can share Booklist love with everyone connected to your school district, library system, or higher learning institution. Booklist Online Unlimited offers just that. Unlimited simultaneous access to 30 years worth of reviews and article archives, plus digital editions of all Booklist's publications. For pricing and other questions, visit booklistonline.com/subscribe. Have you heard? Booklist Reader, our new magazine that offers reading recommendations to patrons of all ages, is coming to print this January. Go to bit.ly/Booklist Reader in print to find out how you can order print copies in bulk for your library. Already a Booklist subscriber? You can share the latest issue now. Go to our website for more details. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more big thank you to our panelists, Dan, Anna, and Kathleen, and to our sponsors, Reference Point Press and the Creative Company. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.